I'm really tired, and maybe that's why you're so happy.
산당 회시 정보 용수 고르시르 담밤에 빔초신 용수 통하고 우드바 담짓 맵시베 리당 응당 셈겸바고 리당 응당 용수 떡정 셈 용수 떡 그라정메 프랑코라고 셈화베 상지지 용던 잡메 바투장 짐브르만지로 뇽몬보 자찹절 비르셰위시르 시르 김순 농보 도바고 셈전 담지지 크르크르위시르도 풍보던 캄다 김쳇 그는 시바고 드지르데 좀비셔 존진 바로하고 ngărtir메 비셔 이신 소라고 추종유셔는 도반용장 쪽시바고 직된 담적 가르샤위셔는 직된지 추담짓 마제바고 직된 담 담브르샤위셔 쇼름 담절레 마님바샤 담저 영도 버르 담비 샤위셔 응음버 시바케바고 도바 담적 종유셔 우종당 잠바당 이시소 샘진 담지지 태습자비셔 원범 촉담 촉마연바 시바고 추담 비비셔 신지르 신르 토바메 바고 포바토베 랍도 니베 포바토바메 바고 게압지 레지 람 용서 딱베 레 엘하담메 포섬 소밤 용하고 차담메 바비셔 랍도 케베 참비 람던 코바고 추담 브럭소라도 지서 예랑장 락소집샤바 짐베 산지지 어양 랍도 토바고 리당강당 예들 돈베 캬버던 로아던 주탐칠라 마차베 산예지 쇼여랍도 토바고 샹주선고 겐던 샹주선고 겐던데 토바 침보라 영도 그런저 바고 용던 탐ချက်샴바 침보던 담비셔는 디마시 디마시는 용던 담저도 쳇마자베 버요바인데 르기버 데르타베 남샤주산과 출랍 존장 샹주산과 디시 자퍼 መንጀሮ ሻንቹሰን ዲፍሼ ዘበር መፍሼቶ这样的我们这个礼拜当中还是
This week,
讲
we will have the classes of Vimalakirti Sutra, and on Wednesday, we will have the class on the teachings from the Guru, from Ponsogon Rinpoche. So for those of you who have interest and who can watch the teaching video of Ponsogon Rinpoche or reading the text of it, so you have to fulfill either of these two requirements to fulfill the prerequisites to attend the Wednesday class. So that's the prerequisites of attending the Wednesday class. Next week, I thought to continue with the teaching of Vimalakirti Sutra and Uddhara Tantra Shastra, but then I changed my mind and thought to give some other teachings next week. But I'm not quite sure what teaching I would give yet. I was originally wanted to continue with the Vimalakirti Sutra and the Uddhara Tantra Shastra, but maybe the after-class discussion group would encounter some difficulties. Therefore, we might change the class schedule, so we'll see. Last class, we started on the part where we talk about the not exhausted conditioned and not abide in the unconditioned. Neither exhausted conditioned nor abide in the unconditioned. This part is actually really deep in meaning. It's a profound piece of instructions. The merits of the conditioned Dharma should not be eradicated, otherwise it will be difficult to continuously to practice the Dharma next life. We should continuously to accumulate the merit every day, continuously to accumulate, because if we were to use up all the previous merits that we accumulated before, then we will then exhaust all the causes for joy, and all we have left would be the causes of our suffering. Therefore, it is quite important of not stopping to accumulate the merit of the conditioned. The previous class, we've already talked about the 25 dharmas, or 25 parts of the conditioned. Now we're on the 26th dharma, which is dharma teaching, which is a practice in limitless generosity. One will become replete in characteristics and marks. If we continuously to then practice generosity, such as generosity of giving the Dharma, generosity of giving the wealth, and generosity of giving fearlessness, if we can continue to do that, especially generosity of providing fearlessness, which is then release life. I think lots of people do practice that. That's wonderful. And I really hope that you could continuously to do that. Continuously to practice generosity of providing fearlessness to other sentient beings, to protect them. I've said before that as long as I'm alive, and any of the sentient beings who could receive happiness or freedom, it would be wonderful, even during my birthday or any of those holidays. And whenever I die, I really hope that all of you could mark my day of death as a day to release lives. You could call it the day of my death or the day of my parinirvana, whatever you call it. But I really hope that would be the day that you remember my teaching of releasing lives. And if you could practice in such a way according to what I said, then I would be very happy, even if I was in Bardo. After a few days, it would be my birthday. I know that many people are preparing to release lives, and I think it would be the best to keep it low-key and not to do it in an extravagant way. You should do it rather skillfully, and you don't have to do it on that particular day. This is really by how you wish to release lives or not. It is not by requirements. If you are then participating or hosting such event of releasing life, then also I would ask you to make sure to watch out for your own safety as well. We have 100-day we have annual 100-day life releasing practice, such practice of generosity of protecting sentient beings, or generosity of fearlessness. And you really shield the sentient beings from suffering. and from fear. And I really feel very happy if you could practice in such a way. There are people who give me praise and who offer me wealth on the day of my birthday. I do feel happy momentarily, but those are conditioned. It would change. And that such happiness would be impermanent. But if you could practice generosity of fearlessness, then I think that's a really great way of celebrating, a really great way of making me happy. In fact, generosity such practice is a great practice, even if the object that you're practicing to does not have a pure intention. The beggars or whomsoever ask you for money, if they ask for money or ask for whatever you could give them out of a way of deceiving you, but if you have a really pure and altruistic intention, still you will receive great merit. When practicing generosity, although the field of merit may not be unsolid, with great altruistic intention one would receive ineffable virtuous result. It is stated in the Sutra of Origin of Buddha. Even if you notice the object or the person whomsoever asks you or requesting you for something, their intention is not pure, but if you have a pure and altruistic intention, then the merit would still be unimaginable. Even if the other person who's asking you for something out of a deceiving intention, you should contemplate in such a way that the other person have such need. Therefore, you should happily then practice generosity to him. And the result of practicing generosity is that you'll be able to receive the result, or to have the result of being reborn as beautiful, just as the Buddha has the 32 primary characteristics and 80 subsidiary marks. And in lifetimes, you will be really pleasant to look at, which is quite important in modern society, isn't it? We had this advocation that you should practice one kind act one day per day. And if you could do it in such a way, you'll be able to then receive a beautiful outlook. Also, there are people who, at first, they were very enthusiastic in practicing generosity, but slowly their enthusiasm will fade. Therefore, I call upon you to maintain such enthusiasm. Do not practice one day and give up on the other. In our Buddhist Study Association, as well as practitioners and sanghas everywhere, I really hope that you should then practice and should support one another to practice generosity and charity. Not only to support poor students, but all kinds of charity, to provide such generosity practice to all kinds of sentient beings. There are practitioners who only think about the ways of providing benefits to others, and there are practitioners who only think to benefit oneself. Not only that they are selfish, they deceive others to benefit themselves, or harm others to benefit oneself. Maybe that's because of their karma. Of course, we cannot require everyone to be like bodhisattvas, but we should try our best, because our life is very limited. And when we have this limited life, we should use this limited time to practice the practices that is worth of value, worth of benefit for this and next lifetimes. because you never know when you will lose such opportunity because of impermanence. Therefore, whenever we have such opportunity, let's cherish it and do not deceive yourself. Otherwise, you are not really doing a favor to yourself or others. So the first one is to practice limitless generosity, and the second one is eliminating all evil. One will purify one's body, speech, and mind. That's the 27th Dharma. One should then eliminate all evil that includes the body, speech, and mind, or the evils or the misdeeds that's prescribed by the Buddha, or inherent misdeeds, as well as misdeeds that's in violation of Vinaya. Of course, it's very difficult to be completely pure. We would have some defilements, sometimes violate our vows, or have the mind of anger or jealousy. We have all kinds of defilements or afflictions that would arise, but we should at least try our best to purify our body and mind and speech. Sometimes when the conditions are mature, it is rather quite easy to practice virtuous deeds. I read in Vinaya text where it says that a master who bought a poor person who sold himself as a servant, and the reason that the owner who purchased him was to ask him to kill other beings. And then this poor servant replied to the master saying that, I've taken the vow of no killing, therefore could you please do not ask me to kill others? And then he started expounding the reasons of not killing others and the virtue of not killing others. And then the master, after listening to the poor servant, agreed with him and agreed of not killing other sentient beings as well. So during our practice of the correct Dharma, I think in ancient times, people really value the truth. Even if someone, as a poor servant, if he were speaking the truth, then the master would listen to them. But nowadays, it's completely different. Nowadays, it's that one person, even if I try my best to convince the other person of not conducting any misdeeds or any evil, the other person would probably then argue back 3 times. So to eliminate all evil and to correct all the misdeeds, those are the things that we should do. Those are the ones who built the Dharma structure. And in the 28th, being born and dying for countless kalpas, one will remain courageous throughout. Now we dwell in samsara, but we should have the mind of courageousness. We should not retrogress. Just as it says that because of wisdom, a bodhisattva do not abide in the 3 existences, and because of compassion, the bodhisattva do not abide in nirvana either. Due to some despair events, we should not feel discouraged because of those events. what it says in the Kshitigarbha's the Sutra of 10 Wheels of Kshitigarbha. It says that whomsoever the being is seen afflicted by all kinds of suffering, motivated by vigorous diligence, the Buddha liberates them fearlessly. All sentient beings have very different habitual patterns, and they feel all kinds of afflictions. But a true bodhisattva would not feel discouraged because of the number of sufferings. Not only they're not discouraged, they are encouraged. They are even more diligent, and they would use different kinds of skillful means to liberate the sentient beings who are suffering. So sometimes when we read the biographies of masters, we see how the great masters in the past or in the modern time, during the course of how they liberated the sentient beings, in fact, the whole course is not that smooth. It's not that easy. In fact, they encounter all kinds of obstacles, ups and downs, different kinds of slanders from the society and so on. But they never really give up. They never give up the great activity of propagating the Dharma. So in our practice, practice of liberating sentient beings, we will definitely encounter all kinds of fear, all kinds of obstacles, but we should, instead of feeling discouraged, we should be even more encouraged to give rise to the mind of benefiting sentient beings. That's the 28th. And then the 29th one says that hearing the immeasurable merits and intention of the Buddha, one will never become tired. Sometimes we hear the stories of the Buddha's bodhisattva activities during the stage of cause. And we hear that how the Buddha during the fruition stage, his qualities and his manifestation of qualities or merits. At that time, when we hear all of these, the Hinayana practitioners, they may feel rather afraid or fearful, but the Mahayana practitioners, they won't feel retrogressive, they won't feel afraid. They're not afraid of such tireless practice, just as in the mind mirror where it says that the supreme Dharma is difficult to attain, yet I vow to attain it, and the Dharma doors are countless, yet I vow to practice it. So we should have such kind of determination to make such vows. We should have courage to practice in such a way. During the course of practicing such great activities, we do not retrogress from such path. This is extremely important. Do not retrogress from this path. The benefit of liberating sentient beings. Sometimes there are things that could seem to be rather menial, but then bodhisattva who practice exertion, they would not give up because of laziness. In the Mahaprajna Paramita Sutra, it says that when a bodhisattva endeavor in activity of constructing or mending the garan, which means the sangha, in managing the sangha as well, managing projects such as structures in monastery or within sangha. If bodhisattva consider an eon's dedication as long and infinite work, then this bodhisattva is considered as a bodhisattva of laziness, of laxity. Yet if a bodhisattva considered an eon's dedication as a day's work, then this bodhisattva is a bodhisattva of diligence. So the Bodhisattva would see the difficult work that lasts in an eon's dedication, but they see it as only as a day's work. Then this is a Bodhisattva that is called a Bodhisattva of diligence. During our practice of serving the Sangha or volunteer work, whenever we hear such kind of activities practiced by the Bodhisattvas, we should not give up. In a short period of time, there are people who feel it is so difficult and they would give up. But the true Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, even if they are scolded, humiliated, even if they had to dedicate their work for an eon, they would not feel tired. They would only consider it as a day's work. This is called a Bodhisattva of diligence. There are people who dedicate their work to serve the others. They count their fingers of how many days are still left in their volunteer work, and they spend every day as a year. This is Bodhisattva of laxity or of laziness. So you can look at yourself. Are you Bodhisattvas of laziness or diligence? Raise your hand if you consider yourself as diligence, Bodhisattva of diligence. How about the Bodhisattvas of laziness? So there are people who do not raise a hand when they're lazy, or the diligent ones. So you're neither? Or did you not understand what I was talking about? Or maybe you're a little shy. The next one talks about with the sword of wisdom one will destroy the bandits of afflictions. Which means at that time we've already then realized the emptiness, and in such kind of wisdom, all the afflictions, all the three poisons are just like the bandits that's very easy to conquer, such as saying in the compendium of the Teaching Sutra, where it says that wisdom is like a sharp-edged sword which can cut through vines of craving, disentangle one from birth and such, and part one from collective faults. So through such kind of wisdom sword, one could easily cut the vines of afflictions, and then we'll be able to disentangle from the birth and death. As long as we have the non-dual wisdom, the ultimate wisdom, then in our world, we'll be able to practice virtuous deeds and devoid of all the evil deeds. Also, in the compendium of Teaching Sutras, there are different kinds of metaphors, such as if one lacks the light of wisdom, the mind would be devoid of clarity. Thus, one becomes like an animal but covered with human skin. So, it says that if we don't have the light of wisdom, then this person is covered with the darkness of ignorance, and such kind of person is like an animal that's covered with human skin. This wisdom talks about the wisdom of distinguishing right from wrong. There's also another metaphor from the sutra saying, from the Sakya Pandita's aphorism, where it says that in front of the foolish ones, in front of there are people who do not have any wisdom. They would be very happy to get together with the foolish ones, but they feel really afraid in front of they feel rather quite afraid in front of the ones who are wise. When we talk about the characteristics of a wise one and foolish one, when we talk about the Indian cattle, we say that they have the characteristic of having a hump at their back and a flap under their neck, and that's their characteristic. And for a foolish one, that is said that a person should have a characteristic of being wise. Otherwise, the person do not have such a characteristic of being wise. So the kind of person who are rather very happy and in front of foolish ones, but not really happy in front of the wise ones, they're like the cows without where they're like cows with upper teeth. Master Yingguang then used the metaphor saying that a person who do not have any ideal, do not have any higher goal to pursue, they do not have any altruistic mind to benefit others, then they're just like a naked worm who do not even have any fur on it. In fact, human beings have lots of characteristics and lots of functions, and they can do lots of things. If they do not practice virtuous deeds and they practice evil deeds, and then they could cause lots of harm. Unlike yaks and cows, the most they can do is just eating grass and sleep, and they won't really harm others. But for human beings, they have the intention and the means and the ability of practicing misdeeds and great misdeeds. So in such a way, if a person has such kind of distracting mind and distracting intention, then the person would create lots of misdeeds, much worse misdeeds than the animals. Yes, on the surface, it seems that animals are not smart, they're rather stupid, but they most of the time cannot create such detrimental results than human beings. So if human beings do not have the sort of wisdom, then such kind of person is rather pitiful. Sort of wisdom. The 31st, it says that one will complete understanding the skandhas, realms, the 18 realms or 18 dhatus, and 12 entrances or ayatanas. One will bear the burden of sentient beings and always make them become emancipated. Over here, the English version is separated into two sentences, yet it's considered as one Dharma teaching over here. To benefit sentient beings, to liberate sentient beings, to help sentient beings to be emancipated from samsara. The Xuanzang's translation as well as the Tibetan translation, it says that in order to bear the burden of sentient beings, one should completely understand the skandhas, realms, and entrances. So it is in order to burden the sentient beings, one should understand the skandhas, realms, and entrances. The translation is a bit different, but what it means is that through understanding skandhas, realms, and entrances, and the nature of the relative phenomena, you can then, on one hand, to surpass the relative phenomena, and then on the other hand, you could then help the sentient beings to be emancipated from samsara. Understanding the relative teaching or relative means of skandha's realm and entrances, and understand that in its true nature there is nothing to be attained. If one could understand all of such, then one will be able to bear the burden of sentient beings and lead them to emancipation. This is the responsibility of bodhisattva. From other people's perspective, they may feel that this is such burden, this is lots of suffering to help them. But from a bodhisattva's point of view, they feel that this is the burden of sweetness, or it's a bitter sweetness. They would just carry the sentient beings just as how parents would carry their babies on their shoulder. Yes, they're carrying something, but they feel really happy inside. But from other people's perspective, it's really not happy. Other people feel that this is lots of suffering, lots of responsibility, and lots of work. But from Bodhisattva's point of view, it would be very different, because liberating sentient beings, in fact, it is quite beneficial for lifetimes. So you have to understand the nature of skandhas, dhatus, and ayatanas, so that you'll be able to benefit limitless sentient beings. That's the 31st. And the 32nd, it says that with great exertion, one will subjugate the armies of Mara. You have to use great subjugation. In the Yogacara text, where it says that there are the exertion of study, contemplation, practice, as well as pacify one's obstacles. Over here it has armies and Mara. Mara over here says about the 4 Maras and troops. According to Master Kuei-ji, it says, he said that there are 10 kinds of armies, such as the army of fear, the army of sleep, the army of desire, and so on. So over here it says that one should use great exertion to subjugate such armies and the armies of the Maras. If you could practice with exertion, then one will feel rather very happy. One will not be be inflicted with any afflictions, and one will not be troubled by unhealthy situations such as lots of sleep and so on. For example, I myself, when I have great exertion, then everything falls right into the place. But when I don't, then it's a different story. Therefore, we should then practice great exertion. I think this is really this is a rule of how one should practice. The next one says, the 33rd, says, one will always seek practice of wisdom of real characteristic of no mindfulness. Over here, no mindfulness, in other translations, it translated as no arrogance, which would be easier to understand. If one do not feel arrogant, then it will be easy for them to give rise to wisdom. According to Avatamsaka Sutra, it says that if one could then practice without arrogance, then one will not be abducted by Maras. So, no arrogance, or no mindfulness, or no such thinking of arrogance. For one who seek practice of wisdom, one has to be then cut through their arrogance. Otherwise, then arrogance will stop the attainment of wisdom. I think Master Nan Huijin, who went to see a Zen master, but this Zen master is very different than what he imagined to be. He lives in a very small place and he lives in seemingly a worldly life. This great Zen master not only lived in a small place, he was smoking a pipe. And when Master Nan visited this Zen master, this Zen master made tea and then also cooked for them and received them very warmly. I'm not going to then elaborate too much on that story. But the point is that whomsoever you are, a master or a lay practitioner, it is important to be humble, to be devoid of arrogance. There's nothing to be arrogant about, really. We have so many afflictions, and maybe temporarily we have some of the fame, some of the wealth, because everything is impermanent. Therefore, there's nothing to be arrogant about, because you could be a king in this lifetime, but next time you could be a beggar. You could be wealthy in the first half of your life, and then you could become a beggar in your second half of the life. You could be really active in the first half of your life, and then become vegetated in the second half of your life. So nothing to be arrogant about. The 34th one, in this one, it will be a little different, but I will explain. According to this translation, it says that one will know satisfaction through minimal desire regarding the worldly dharma. One will seek the supermundane dharmas without tiring. In fact, this translation is according to Taisho Tripitaka, that is a Japanese Tripitaka, or Tripitaka then edited in Japan. But in other translations, it is said that one will seek supermundane dharmas without tinted. Rather, they would follow or going according with the habitual pattern with the worldly habitual patterns, but they're not tinted. So the Taisho Tripitaka was then edited in 1912 to 1925, but according to the Qianlong Emperor's Tripitaka, as well as then the Sanskrit version, as well as the Tibetan version, the translation is a bit different. So according to the other translations, it should be then divided into these two dharmas. The first one says that one will know satisfaction through minimal desire regarding the worldly dharma. One should be very contented with the worldly providings and worldly materials. Otherwise, you won't be able to attain the truth from this world, because the more desire that we have, then it is difficult for us to attain realizations from our practice. That is why in Buddhism teachings, some of the highest teachings are only received by monastics. Why is that? It is because that desire and worldly chores could be of great obstacles. Therefore, the monastics or the renunciants, and then they can receive the teachings successfully. But for the ones who have great worldly desires, they won't be successfully to practice such profound dharma. In the majority of translations, it is considered as the 34th dharma, and then 35th.
于事无诈啊，就是二冷遂顺事件，就是于事件呢就是无有诈然的
One
意思。
will not be tinted by the world, yes, yet going in accord with the
然后
world.
二冷这个遂顺事件，就是这个是咱们和大多数里面就是也是这样
So
讲的。
this
于事
version
法呢
is
就是
the
无诈然
one
二冷这个
that is more in accord with the majority of the translations or editions, including the Tibetan and the Sanskrit version.
这个于事件的法呢，
So what does it mean? It means
不诈
that
然，就很多修行人就是他虽然呢
practitioners are not tinted by the worldly practices. Lots of practitioners and they do not, they're not tinted by any of the worldly afflictions or habitual patterns. Just like the lotus flower is not tinted by mud, and just like the sun and the moon, they rise but do not abide in the middle of the space. They're going in accord with the worldly people, with the worldly custom, but they are not tinted by any of these. So bodhisattvas are just like that. They abide in this world, yet they're not tinted by this world. Majority of us, they would consider us, majority of people would consider that Buddhists are out of this world. Buddhism doctrines are out of this world because it is not in accord with this world. They're very high up there. In fact, this is not completely true, because the bodhisattvas, they would then abide in this world. They would go in accord with this world, even sometimes more accord with this world than majority of mundane beings, because a bodhisattva would even treat the beggars with great equanimity. But in lots of, in majority of the countries, they would look down on the beggars or poor people. So that was the 35th, and 36th is that yet one will be able to accord with the profane without either forsaking the worldly dharmas or breaking the deportments. The monastics, they have their ways of dressing, their particular ways of speech and their actions, and very particular deportments. But their deportments, are those deportments going against of the worldly ways then? No, it is not. They would carry such deportments, but they would also go according with the worldly habitual patterns. Sometimes when the worldly custom is very much across the line, and then I think practitioners should not go in accord with such a practice. The other day, I went to a school, and then the school said that I should dress up as Confucius, as according to a Confucius way of dressing. I said, can I just take out the external one, and then I would just wear only the inside of the clothing? A lay practitioner went to his home and got a red jacket. I said, well, that's okay. But then they said that I should not wear a red robe either. I said, no, I can't wear a black dress. If people click a picture of me wearing a black dress, then I would be really famous of a wrong way. But some people give me the idea of trying to use a scarf covering up my red robe. Anyway, people could not you probably don't understand the whole process, but that's okay.
说
The
有
key
时
is
是要
that
顺顺，但是顺顺的时候呢，也不能
it's
太那个了，对吧？就有时候稍微就是
sometimes
有必要的。
people would require you
这
to
个
go according with them,
它这
but
里
sometimes
这
it
个
would
是
be
叫
too
什么呢？
much,
要
and
这个顺
when
顺
it
是
really
这样
touch
把
your
这种不
principles, you
这样
should
的
not
这
do
个
it
要
either.
严心呢，就有这
Anyway,
个轻
according
这
to
个
Pachu
顺顺
Rinpoche,
然
he
后
said that
什么自己的
that
意
your
识呢
speech
就
and
顺
action, you
顺
should
当地，还
go
要那个
accord
自己的
with
心呢要
your
顺顺服好。
relatives and
所以
friends,
我们一般
and
自我
your
教养里面
clothing
也
should
是
go
讲
in
就是说
accord
说
with the local
这
costume,
个就有
and
时候
your
岁数
mind
当地
should
的这
go
个习
in
俗也
accord
很
with the
重要
Dharma.
就是入乡随俗，就是这
It's
个很
quite
重要。
important to go
接下来
in
呢就是第
accord with the local
36
costume.
37是吧？
That was
其
the
神通会引导众
37th.
生，当然我们没有神
That
通，
was the 36th
有
and now
神通的话依靠
37th.
这个神通
One will
来引导
generate
众生。
sagacity of
神通
numinous penetration and
很好的，
entice
但是呢，
sentient
就是我们没
beings.
有
One
没有
numinous
神通的
penetration,
话
we
呢，
don't
就是
have
也
it
也
yet.
是有一
It's
定
good
的
to
这个
have numinous
这
penetrations
个
to
困
entice
难
sentient
就
beings,
是
but if we don't,
当然我们还是依靠一种这
it
个
could be a
方
little
便
bit
方法来
difficult,
就是
but we should
众生
at least
方
use
便方
some
法来
skillful
利益
means
众
to
生。
benefit
这是
sentient beings.
我们刚才也讲到，就是这个不失坏这个威仪啊，就是即使现神通也是
On
不
one
能失坏
hand
威仪。
is
以前那个佛陀
not
好像在那
to
个寺院里是吧？就是
break
哪
the
里也有
deportment.
当时那个佛陀的有些
I
比丘
think
啊，
according
就
to
受到
the
这个因功以后的话呢，就是他没有回向，也没有做什么，就是然后外道的很多呢，
according
就是
to the
他们就是对
Dharmagupta
世间还是比较
Taka Vinaya,
精通
where
然
they
后
told the
离开的时
story
候呢，就
of
经常那
a
个
bhikshu
打
who,
招呼啊，
after
是这样的。
finishing
后
the
来佛陀
meal,
呢，就是
he
专
did
门
not
就是给他们
made
这个
he did not
现在
make
很多佛教
dedication
经
of
中
merits.
当中也是有若为尼姑
And then
什么事次利
the
地方
Buddha
的是吧？
said
就是
that
若为尼
to
姑
this bhikshu,
是
saying
和
that you should
不
chant
必得
in
安乐
chant
不
this
必得
verse
快乐 这
after the
些里面
meal
说是得快乐，
that
有些
people
说
offer
是得
to
安乐，
you.
就是现在这个
The
有些寺院里面就是经常
the
念这个
verse
佛陀呢
that
就
he
要
should
求
chant
就
it,
让
it
他
says
们
that if
要
alms
念
are
这个
given
祭
for
祖，
benefit,
这样的话呢，
reciprocation is assured.
就是一个
If
是不
alms are
是
given
不
for
是唯
joy,
一，
joy
然后
is
就是利益
assured.
众生，就是没有这个神通身边的人呢，就是也
So
可以
one
这
should
样。
not break their deportments
以前的
to
话呢，就是
break
以前
sentient
那个
beings.
佛陀当时呢，
Also during the Buddha's time,
好像有一个也是一个戒律里面，记得一个戒律里面就是佛陀时代就是好多比丘都是
also a story from
一个
Vinaya.
阿罗汉的是当时准备
During
度一个
Buddha's
婆罗门
time,
女，这个
many
婆罗
people
门女呢
had
就是她心
great
情不太好，就是她有一次
numinous
想把那个什么
penetration.
就是向
There
那
was
个
a
就
bhikshu
害怕
who
就是有一些
wanted
比丘
to
来这个化缘
liberate
就是
a
让门条都
Brahmin
封死死的，
woman.
然后自己在里面
And
做那个扫地。
The Brahmin woman,
然后这个阿
she
罗汉
was
呢就知
cooking,
道了这个
she was
这个婆罗门
cooking
女
a
的度化的
roti,
众生已经因缘
and
成熟了。然后呢，他先是渗透，
this
然后
bhikshu,
从屋子里面
through
就
his
冒
numinous
出来了。
penetration, he
然后他那个婆罗门女
saw
很不
that
高兴
this
就是
woman
说
is
你眼睛掉在地上了，我不会
matured
给你的。
to
然后结果
receive
阿罗汉的眼睛
the
真的掉在地
teachings.
上了。然后他说是你眼睛就是像
And
豌豆大
then
的话，我
this
也不会给你。
Arhat, this
然后结
bhikshu,
果真的眼睛也是
appeared
像豌豆
suddenly
大的。
inside the house
然后他说
of
你道理
the
行的
Brahmin
话，我也
woman,
不会
and
给你。结果阿罗
the
汉也是道理
woman
行。
still
然
do
后
not
说是
want
你死
to
了也不会给你的。
still do
然
not
后结果
want
真的
to
在他家里面就阿罗
offer
汉就
this
死了。
roti to him.
然后后来就那个女的有
And
点
she
害
said
怕，
that even
她
if
现
your
在
eyes
看
fall
到
out,
就
I
是
would not offer
王公女婿
offer you
出
this
现，还要
roti.
去
And then
这个
the eyes fell out from this arhat. And then she said that, well, I would not offer you even if your eyes are as big as a bowl. And then that's what he did.
然后
And
阿罗汉
then
就
she
就
said
过
that
来了。
if you die, I wouldn't
活过来
even
了以
give
后
you.
的
And
话
then
呢，
he
就
died. And
就
she
就
was
然后这
really
个时候
afraid.
就
And
是
she
给他就
took
是
the
因
body
为他很
into
厉
the
害，
palace
然
and
后那个
say
女的这个善
that
根呢慢慢
this
成熟，就是然后
person
阿
died
罗汉
in
给他
his
呢，
in
他
her
说其实
house.
我并不是
And
要
then she said
就
that
是这样。
if you
他
could
当时还是认为
if you could
他
revive
说
from
那我
death,
就是
then
这
I will
个
offer you
病呢就
this
是不会
roti.
最好的，
That's
我就
then
这些
what
大
this
概的
arhat
给
did.
给
He
一点。
revived from
然后后
death.
来阿罗汉说没事，就是
Uh,
你可以给
this
其他比丘就是继续
this
善根。
Brahmin woman
然后这
still was very stingy and did not want to offer him the whole roti, rather just some of the side and the little pieces of the roti. And the Arhat said, that's okay as long as you can make some offering. So after she made this offering, her merits were then matured, and she started listening to the Dharma and attained fruition. So with numinous penetration is really wonderful, isn't it? The 38th says that one will not forget that one has heard through the dharani of memory. Whatever you hear, whatever dharma you hear, you will not be able to remember, just as nowadays it is said as photographic memory. There are people who only by looking they'll memorize, they'll be able to memorize everything. There are people who have good memory who doesn't. I saw some of the exam papers, and from those papers I'll be able to see that they have good memory. Especially some older practitioners, and they have even better memories, which is a great sign of practice. The 39th says that one will discriminate well between those of various capacities and eliminate the doubts of sentient beings. If this person is of high, medium, or low capacities, because sentient beings have very different capacities, and the bodhisattva will give different teachings towards sentient beings of different capacities. There are people who have wrong view and lots of doubts, and especially practitioners, once they have some wrong view or some doubts, they feel really discouraged. They feel very discouraged, and I don't think that's necessary, because you have to continuously to practice and to listen. According to the Sutra of a Heap of Jewels, it says that bodhisattvas are well versed in infinite Dharma teachings, as their minds are unwavering by any challenging questions in front of a great assembly or by anyone. Out of their compassion, they give Dharma teachings to dispel the doubts of sentient beings. The sentient beings have such wrong views and lots of doubts and lots of questions. And out of the compassion of bodhisattvas, they give the Dharma teachings to dispel such wrong views and doubts of sentient beings. So, people from different places of the world, if you have the request of listening to Dharma from Dharma teachers, over here we have lots of Dharma teachers who completed at least 6 years of studying and received the certificates of graduation. Then we will send some of the Dharma teachers to you to give you teachings. We have requirement towards the people who give requests, and people have a request. You could also report to us. If the Dharma teacher do not then follow the rules and do not teach well, then maybe they will not go out to teach again, or maybe they will be expelled. We never know. There are people nowadays who only study the Dharma for a very short period of time. And there are people, although they didn't study for a long period of time, when they went out and give some teachings, they felt that it is quite necessary to give teachings to benefit sentient beings. Of course, this kind of Dharma teachers that we send out are not to make any benefits of their fame or gain any wealth, but we have such resources of the Dharma teachers. Their monasteries, there are khenpos and khenmos who give teachings, and there are Dharma teachers, and there are Dharma teachers who had not received the certificates of khenpos or khenmos. But if you invite them, they would still be able to give you teachings and guide you through and so on. I also encourage those of you who stay here, do not only consider about your own well-being in terms of your living situation as well as your meals and the clothing and so on. I think as Mahayana practitioners, it's quite important to work to eradicate the doubts of sentient beings. That's the 39th. The 40th, it says that one will expound upon the Dharma without hindrance, taking pleasure in one's eloquence. Over here, taking pleasure, what it means is that there are 4 kinds of eloquence. And the first one is taking pleasure in eloquence. It is because they've already received the supreme eloquence because of the supreme wisdom that they've attained. Therefore, one will not be challenged by others because of the eloquence, and they can expound the Dharma without any hindrances. Just as what we say, that if a perfect person expounds the Dharma, then all the Dharmas are perfect, are well-rounded. This translation is a bit different as well, but I'm not going to elaborate too much on the different editions. So if one takes pleasure in one's eloquence, then one could expound Dharma anywhere without any hindrances. If one do not have the sufficient amount of knowledge of the Dharma without sufficient studying of the Dharma, then they would feel fearful in terms of teaching. But there are also people who they feel quite arrogant, and they feel very and they would feel very arrogant and proud in giving the teaching.
也有这样的，这就是像我一样啊，就是不是什么就是别人啊，我说的我自己。这也是这个。
I was really talking about myself that is seriously teaching the nonsense. Of course, there are people like that. There are people who give teaching in one's eloquence.
下面第41个法呢，尽失散道，树人田。
The 41st, it says that one will be pure in carrying out.
对了吧？那么就亲近这个失散道，我们这个十不三业。
One will be pure in carrying out the 10 types of goods and experience the blessings of gods and humans. The 10 types of virtuous actions, once you practice in such a way, you'll be able to experience the fruition of the gods and humans. 10 virtuous actions, in fact, are quite important. The sutras of the 10 virtuous actions is quite an important sutra to study. That's the 41st and the 42nd. It says that one will cultivate the 4 limitless and open up the path to Brahma heavens. There are 4 Brahma abidings, or the 4 limitless, rather the 4 limitless. And through the 4 limitless, you will be able to then open the path of Brahma heavens. If we practice the 4 limitless with bodhicitta, then we will be able to transcend samsara and receive the omniscience of Buddhahood. receive such fruition of omniscience of Buddhahood. The 43rd, it says that one will exhort and request others to explain the Dharma and turn the wheel of Dharma, and accordingly joyous in praising His excellence, attaining the Buddha's voice. Over here, these two are again together rather than separated in the English texts. So for those people who would say excellent, excellent to the ones who turn the wheel of Dharma, they will be able to attain the Buddha's voice. It is quite important to request others to turn the wheel of Dharma, such as Mipa Rinpoche as well as Longchenpa. There are disciples who would offer ink and paper and pen and brush to ask them to then request the Dharma teachings. This is quite important. Similarly, to Pansukar Rinpoche, there are disciples who requested him to then give the teachings of Dharma. This is quite important. This teaching is also taught in the 7 branches of offering. The 44th one, it says that one will be good in act of body, speech, and mind, attaining the deportment of Buddha. Again, it should be one sentence instead of 2 in the English text. For people who practice the pure virtuous actions of body, speech, and mind, they will naturally receive the blessings of the Buddha as well as the deportments of Buddha. The blessings of the Buddha receives the blessings of the Buddha. If we have better, more virtuous body, speech, and mind, they will be able to receive more blessings. And the evil ones, or the ones who practice lots of misdeeds, would not be able to receive the blessings of the Buddha. And 45th one, it says that one will profoundly cultivate the good qualities with one's practice becoming increasingly excellent. Some practitioners, they would practice rather vastly. They practice the esoteric as well as the exoteric teachings. They study quite extensively in terms of the vastness. They study many texts. And there are people who would study for a long period of time. They would say that I stayed in such center for such years, I studied this text for such years. But if you do not dig in, if you do not study in depth, then it doesn't matter how long you study, it is not of any benefit to anyone. There are people who didn't study for a long period of time, but they studied in great depth. For example, if they study the Bodhicharyavatara, then they study the Bodhisattva's act in very depth, and then they will be able to then give rise to genuine bodhicitta. Then that's study in depth. And there are people who practice Vajrayana, and then they give rise to pure perception. And then people who study emptiness, they have genuine insights of emptiness, and those are the depths. I myself, I think that I have studied quite vastly. I've studied esoteric as well as exoteric teachings. I know some worldly teachings, but I myself feel that in lots of aspects, that in some of the key aspects, I lack depth. Just like myself, I see that there are people who practice for a long period of time, who study for a long period of time, who then accumulated lots of numbers in their practices, and they practice for many times, even the Nundro practice. But if they do not grasp the key point in depth, then they should still practice continuously to practice. So I really think that everyone should look into your own
么什么
mind
意思呢？就是通过这个大乘的这
and
种这个佛法，
investigate
就然后
whether
呢，就是让
you've
大家成这个菩萨
you
身。
you
菩萨
are
身的
such a
话
kind
呢，
of
就像文
practitioner
墨
who
居居士一样，
profoundly
虽然在家
cultivate
善
a good
的，
quality,
但
who
是呢，就是真正
profoundly
有利他的
practice
这种
in
圣人。
depth.
或
And then
者
the
是
46th one
有
it
一
says
些
that with
出家
Mahayana
人，但
teachings
是呢，
one will
你
become
是
Bodhisattva
真正
monk.
是有菩提心的
The,
人，
over
这叫做
here,
是大乘身办。
Bodhisattva
就是通过这
monk,
个大乘佛
it
法的
means
话呢，
at
就是让你变成
Mahayana
一个
monk.
大
Through
乘
the
的这种
Mahayana
圣众，就
teachings,
菩萨身众。 我
you
们有
then
些就是
can
刚
be
刚出家
led
的
to
时候也是
become a Mahayana
就
monk.
首先着重于就我头发剃得光不光
There are people who are
然后我
new
穿得好不好看
monastics.
就
The
我们
only
刚刚
thing
这
they
个提
care
出
the
的有
most
些出
is
家人
that,
的话呢，
oh, look at
又
my
照
head,
一个
I've
镜子，
shaved
又
it
照一
really
个镜子，
clean,
我好好
and
看呐，就是
look
我
at my
自己
clothing.
的
I
手
look
机我
really
自拍
good
我
in
我
this
好像
robe.
就
I
为了
use
出
my
家
cell
就
phone. I'll
是
take
为
a
了自拍
selfie for
就是这样
myself.
但这
I
个这
get
个不叫
ordained
这个大
to
乘
take
身份
photos,
菩萨
to
身
take
真正的菩
selfies.
萨身像我
And
们
for
墨居
people
士
who
一
have
样
such kind of
利益众
intentions,
生
it's not
真的
called as
我们有时候
Mahayana
这个
monk.
现
It's
在
not
很多
called
人
as
喜
a
欢出家，我也在
Bodhisattva
条
monk.
件
A
居住
Bodhisattva
各方
monk,
面的话
a
呢，
Bodhisattva
就
monk
在
is
有时候
a
培训
monk
但是
who's
呢，
like
我
a
们这个
Vimalakirti.
一方面自身的
There are
话呢，就
new
是要出家是一个
ordained
长期的这种
practitioners.
信持这个
I
善
really
法，
think
尤其
that
是这个利他的这个出家是
it
很重要的。自理的这种出家
entails a
生活
long
嘛，
period of
出家
time
也
of
可以，不出家
practice
也可以，对
as
社会
well
也
as
不会有什么大的危害。然后自己
extensive
修行的
work
话呢，
of
就怎么
benefiting
样都
others.
可以。不过呢，就是出家人的
For
话呢，
people
尤其
who
是像我们这个很多这个出家人
are
的话呢，还
monastics,
是不像
especially
那个就个别地方一样的，就是受到了家人啊各方面的这个支持啊。有一
the
定的
monastics
所以我也希望这个各个
who
部门
are
的话呢，
here, you are not
对你的
really
出家人啊，
ordained
就是
with the
应该
support
给予
of
大
your
量的
family
这个支持，
members.
就是
Therefore, I really
有
hope
些
that
部
the
门
sanghas
有
over
些部
here
门
you
以
should
前是发
provide
心人员，
lots
然后现在
of
出了家以后就是住的地方
lots
也没有，
of
吃的也没有，就是让他发
help
心的
to those
条件。
newly
现在发心条
ordained
件的话呢，有些
monastics,
这个负责人有些
especially
领
the
导嘛，
ones who
给个
probably
人的
don't
关
even
系不
have
好的话
a
呢，
shelter
说
to
到他就是
live,
开
who
了。
do
这
not
样的
have
话
a
呢，
place to
那就
eat.
是出家人也是
Nowadays,
自
I
负
see
不
that
如
people
就是
would
然后呢
take
就是
things
到那个
very
到哪里去。
personally.
所以有些社会
If
的话
the
呢，我也很
supervisor
希望呢，
do not
就我
keep,
们
if a
这
newly
个
ordained monastic
各
do
个
not
部
keep a
门的
good
这个发心
relationship
的
with the
这些负责
supervisor,
人的话呢，
then the
其实
supervisor
这
do
个
not
对下
provide
面的这个就业
skillful
就是这个出家人当中
support
也有
to
事业的
the
人，
other.
然后
I
这
really
个
think
然
that
后
there are
这
people
个也
who
需要就业，这种
after
就
they
业不
got
像是社会
ordained,
上的就
they are
业，但有时候呢
unemployed,
是
so to
发
speak.
现
They're
就
not
业找不到，
being
发现
helped.
工
They're
作，然
not
后呢也有
being able to find
你们
any
也许可能
position
不知道，
for
我
them
希
to
望你们
provide
有
service
些
to the
负责人
sangha.
呢，就是
There
下
are
面
people
就
who
是
feel
到一
rather
些真正的这
very
个
painful
普通的
after
这
they
个
got
僧侣的
ordained.
这
I
个心理
think
和价值
it is
去
due to a
去
lack
了
of
解一下，
support
这个
from
僧
the
也会
sangha.
感受得到的。这也
I
是
call
就
up on
是
those
分辨的加
supervisors
以
in
的
different
特
departments
殊的
to
这种缘起
then
啊。
get to know different people's
可能有些也不知道
different
这个
people's
说的什么样，但是
situation and to try to help them accordingly.
你知道了吗？知道了。
Do you know what I was talking about?
好吧。
Yes.
那么
Okay.
最后一个啊，就是心无放逸，就是不是众善
The
众
last
善
one,
啊，就是我们
it
最
says
关键
that
的就是心呢，
without
就是不
mental
要这个
laxity,
放逸啊，就是一定要行
one
持
will
这个
not
善
fail
法啊，就是因
in
为
the host of
佛教的
goods.
话呢，就是最关键的
Do
就是放
not
在这个行为上啊，放在这个信上，还有呢就是行为上，我们意识
Do
的
not
这样的
have
一种这个
such
修行实际
laxity
上也并
in
不是
your
很
mind
重要
because
的
the
更
emphasis
重要
of
的就是
Buddhism
发
is
心的
on
这
the
个它的
mind.
这个行
The
为。
what's
好
most
像这个
important
万善
is
同
the
归经里面也说
aspiration
了，
and
就是
the
佛法贵在
action.
信子啊，就是不
In
取一起这个不变。
according to all virtues are
如这个父呢，
subsumed
就是生
within
活
one
啊，
nature,
恶
where
道
it
成为
says
意思
that
就是说呢，我们这
practicing
个
the
佛法
Dharma
呢，
is
如
more
果没有
valuable
这
than
个
merely
心不
verbal
一致，就是
debates,
好好的
as
信
verbal
这的话，
debate
那偶然的
is
发
like
心呢，
insects
其实也并
gnawing
不是
trees
这个
while
好好的
producing
啊，
character
有时候这
images
个
by
就我们这个
chance.
实践的冲的话呢，就是在木 木头上也是画出一些什么人呐，就是各
The
种文字都出来，但它是偶然的，
insects
不是真实的。
would
所以
then
我们有
clouding
时候
on
呢，
trees
好像
and
心
create
里面就是不
different
讨论，
images
然
such
后
as
表面上呢就是形成一些
words
善法，
and
暂时就是出现一些
characters,
影响
but
出现一些禁忌我
it
今
is
天做了
just
一个
like
好
that.
梦
If
就肯定
people,
我现在修行会成
some
但不
practitioners
一
who
定
had a
就
good
是修行是一个长
dream
期
by
的，也
chance,
是一
if
个
a
不放
person
逸的
who
一件事
just by
这样的
chance
话，长
then
期这样下去
in
的话
some
呢，那
ways
你的
had
性
a
质上
great
是不容易
insights
的
of the deity and
退
so
失
on,
的，否
it's
则的话
only
呢，
by
你这个人
chance. It
心
is
就是
not
没有真知
really
真理，
by
经常呢就是处于一种
exertion.
放荡不已的话呢，那你的行为
If
上
your
就更没有
mind
这个
is
做的了。
constantly
那这样
in
以后呢，
laxity,
这个
your action is definitely also in such laxity, in such a frivolous state. Many people practice for a long period of time, and because of frivolousness in their mind and action, then they will not end up with any fruition. That is such a pity. The last one, then it says that practicing a dharma such as this, one is called a bodhisattva who does not exhaust the conditioned. This is quite important. According to Master Sun Zhao's connotation on Vimalakirti Sutra, it says that practicing accordingly, upholded by oneself and liberate others, merit would prosper day by day. This is called not exhaust the conditioned. The not exhausted the conditioned, in fact, we've studied the 47 dharmas from here. While conditionalities are of disintegration, if such practice is given up, the conditioned virtues would deplete eventually. Just as in a bank, if we deposit some money in it, if we do not continuously to deposit in the bank account, but continuously to use the money from the bank, to withdraw from the bank, then eventually you will deplete, your bank account will be depleted. But if you could then continuously to deposit into the bank account, just like that, if you could practice in such a way, that is called a deposit in the pool of merit. In Zen and mainland tradition, there are people who would talk about emptiness, but they would then exhaust the conditioned dharma. They said, no, you don't have to practice the meritorious actions and so on. This is wrong, because then they will exhaust the conditioned dharma. So for those of you who study this part of the teaching, I really hope that you could continuously to listen, to study. Do we have replays? Can you watch it after? For some people, they place great importance with the Vajrayana replays, Vajrayana teachings replays. But there are people nowadays who can only watch on certain days. I'm not making a promise, because our volunteers who provide the service of technical support, in fact, they are already quite tired. But I also know that there are people who are busy, but they attach great importance in listening to the Dharma. Maybe we should provide such service. Of course, this is not a request for you to make such service available, but I really think this is great to then study in depth. This is quite important to remember it. It says that one will profoundly cultivate the good qualities with one's practice becoming increasingly excellent. One will profoundly cultivate the good quality, one will study in depth. It is not enough to practice diligently. It is also important to practice in depth. And there are people who practice rather successfully, and there are people who are not. Why is that? It is because it's lack of depth. Without depth, as I said earlier, with depth, then it is easy for people to practice with the key point, and they will be able to practice and gain great insights. And there are people who do not blend or emerge with the Dharma. If your mind is blend in with the Dharma or being one with the Dharma, then your mind and your mind consciousness continuum will not change. I hope after finishing learning this part, you should really repeat yourself that do not exhaust the condition, do not exhaust the conditions. This is quite important, these 4 words. Remember this.
非常重要的一个。当前我们很多人修行人
This is one of the most important part of the Vimalakirti Sutra. Nowadays, in the world, lots of people would forget this, do not exhaust the conditions. And today we'll stop here.